rock into gold, then he polishes you. Then he shapes you to however he wants you to be. And that's where we need to start going. Because he has already taken us out, correct? We are out of the rock now, of our filth. We are out of the hole that we dug. So now it's time for the polishing. It's time for the refinement. And that is with the word. That is with iron sharpening iron. We need one another more than we have ever had. Because without each other, we cannot be refined. You have a chain, one chain is weak, that whole chain is worthless. So if you think you can handle it by yourself, you are dead wrong. With the body and only with the body. We cannot do it by ourselves. We cannot. In verse 7, listen to me, you who know righteousness. Do we know Almighty Yah? If we say we know Almighty Yah, then the very first thing we need to know is love, right? He is love, so we have to be careful. If we say we know Almighty Yah, we need to know love. A people in whose heart is my Torah. So that's another requirement of knowing righteousness, of knowing Almighty Yah. Having His Torah in our heart. Do we know His Torah? That's a question. We don't have to answer it now. Do we know it? Do we really, really know it? Because that's our requirement. Just like how pursuing righteousness means seeking Almighty Yah, knowing righteousness means knowing the Torah, knowing Almighty Yah. So, if we are those things, if we do know the Torah, if we know love, what does it say? Do not fear the reproach of men, nor be afraid of their revelings. Now, we may not feel that way now. The urgency might not be there now. But time will come where our so-called friends, where our so-called co-workers will try to reproach us, telling us that what we believe in is wrong. Or maybe some of us already experienced that. Say, you don't have to keep the law. You don't have to keep the Torah. It's been done away with. What are you doing? That's wrong. You should be celebrating Christmas with us. Fellowship with us. It's fun. You get gifts. You get to drink and hang out and party. But it says, do not fear. Do not be encouraged by that. Do not be influenced by that. Do not be tempted by that. And the only way you can't be tempted is if you never want it in the first place. So if we have to look in ourselves if some part of us wants it. Because if some part of us do, when they come and tell us, forget these things and we'll give you this, you just might. You just might. You know, I watched a movie last month before spring break, or before they called Mardi Gras, something like that. I watched a movie called Schindler's List. Now that's a 3-hour movie, and I watched it at I started watching it at like 11 p.m. So you know what time I finished. It was a long time, right? And you know how Schindler was able to save them? By appealing to what those Nazis wanted. Because they wanted it. They lusted for it. They wanted the parties. They wanted the jewelries. They wanted the exotic foods. Now, if we come to that temptation, will we do the same? When there's a Schindler of their own, thinking we're the one that's lost, thinking we're the one that needs saving, and they try to tempt us with gold, with big mansions, with big lands, are we going to say, sure, I'll take those? Huh? Are we going to be the same and give up and give in to our temptations? No? We can't, right? Why? Why can't we? We'll lose the kingdom? What else? Why can't we? Because we are the sons and children and daughters of the Most High. That's first and foremost we have to know. That we are His. We are not our own. We have been bought with a price. It's simple. So when people try to offer us with this, maybe you should say, well, I already own it. No thanks. You think you may have it for now. But when the time comes, when everything goes to where it belongs, you will see that that belongs to me. And they will think you're crazy. They will again try to tell you, okay, maybe we didn't get through to you enough. Maybe you need more beatings. Because times will come. I was just telling my dad this. I was asking him if the Maccabean period he included in the Bible that he translated. Because people need to know that there's no such thing as a rapture. That you will go through, that we will all go through what we have to go through. And hiding away the fact that people before have gone through horrible things is not going to do you any good. Not going to do us any good. We have to know these things. We can't be ignorant about these things. It's very horrible what happened before. And what did the word say? It will happen again and it will be worse than you could ever imagine. Now, those of us who've seen Schindler's List saw that it was pretty bad. There was a man who literally, if he wanted to, felt like it while he's drinking coffee, take out a rifle and shoot a random person. Now, I think that's a little bit too merciful, actually, because you shot him dead. But it says it will be worse than that. Now, there was a scene in that movie where they had to dig up all the dead bodies. And it smelled for weeks. You could see the ashes for miles. And history says there's supposedly 6 million accounted for. 6 million. The world's population now is almost 8 billion. Take 10%, not even, take 5%. And that's 400 million people. That's crazy. But I think that's going to be different for when the time comes and we have to go through what we go through. Because we may see all these people dying with us, if that is our role, if that is what Almighty wants for us. And we might have fear then, thinking, I don't want to go through this. We don't know, because the time hasn't come yet. So like before, we have to always eat. We have to be ready at all times. So when they challenge us on this word, we can fight back. You know, I told my dad before, and I told Natalie before, whenever you fight with someone, or whenever you argue with someone about something that they believe in, you can't bring your belief into that. Because they already don't believe you. What you have to do is find holes in their beliefs. That's the only way. If you find contradictions in what they believe in, then you will have doubt. You will instill doubt in them, and that's a start. But the same way goes for us. If they can find holes in our foundation, if they can find holes in how we read this Bible and how we interpret and how we consume the word, then we will have doubt. So we have to prove for ourselves worthy of using the word. Not everyone can do it. That's why we need our pastors. That's why we need our teachers to break it down for us. What did it say in Galatians? Is it Galatians, Brother Isaac, where he gave apostles? Ephesians 4:11. He gave us these people for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry, edifying of the body. But we have to do our part. A teacher can't be teaching the class and the class has no idea what the teacher's talking about. I see that all the time in college. Sometimes I'm one of them. I don't read for the class and I'm sitting there, well, I might as well be taking a nap because I'm wasting my time. Now we are blessed enough to have brothers and sisters who are willing to feed us meat, yet we're not even ready to consume it. That means we need to work on ourselves. So that when it comes to talk, that when it comes for Sabbath and when it comes to for fellowshipping, that there is an iron in you that can sharpen your fellow brother or sister who is also an iron. Because if you're clay and they're trying to sharpen themselves on you, all you're doing is making them dirty, making them dull, because you're not ready. So we have to be ready. We may fellowship with one another, but we have to be ready to at least be on somewhat of a same level so that we can talk to each other about the word. Yes, we have Brother Johnson who can quote a verse in Habakkuk chapter 1 verse 7. But we don't have to do that. That's what he's there for, to teach us these things. But we have to be ready to receive. If we're not ready to receive this, it's worthless. In Psalms 105 verse 41. Now, here's a refuge. Here's a refuge. In Psalms 105 verse 41. This is akin to what Moses did. Actually, it's a testimony of David of what Almighty Yah did for Israel. So in verse 41 it says, and he opened the rock, and water gushed out, and it ran in the dry places into the river. And go to verse 3, in Lamentations chapter 3 verse 54. So we saw that the water gushed out into the dry places. In Lamentations verse 3, verse 54, chapter 3 verse 54. And waters flowed over my head. So we are that dry place, right? That sometimes in trying to help us, in trying to pour love on us, that we feel overwhelmed and say, I am cut off. When really, maybe that's Almighty giving us water, giving us living water. And because we have been so dry that it overflows us and think we're missing out. Have you ever seen a very, very dry piece of land? Very dry. And you run water through it. And it takes a while for it to soak it in. Because it's gotten so used to being dry, right? Maybe sometimes that's us. That when Almighty tries to pour that living water on us, we have been dry